WVTT information overload. The suspect in a deadly shooting rampage northeast of here in upstate New York is now over. New York State Police Superintendent Joseph D'Amico tells how the standoff with 64-year-old Kurt Myers ended.
This morning, joint teams from the FBI and the New York State Police tactical teams shortly before 8 a.m. Entered the location with canines as part of the team. And somewhere on the first floor of the location, the gunman began to shoot at the tactical team, struck one of the canines, and fire was returned and exchanged with the gunman from one of the tactical teams. And at that time, the male, Kurt Myers, was shot and killed inside the location.
Now, this all started Wednesday morning with a fire at Myers' apartment. Police say Myers then shot 4 people at a local barber shop and 2 others at an auto repair shop. The 266th Pope, Pope Francis, gave his first homily as pontiff today in a mass along with the cardinals who elected him. Pope Francis recited prayers with the cardinals in the Sistine Chapel. He began the day with prayers at a basilica in Rome. Now, Pope Francis will be formally installed next Tuesday. The former Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio of Argentina was elected yesterday by secret ballot on the 5th round of voting in the conclave. Now, Pope Francis is the first pope ever from either North or South America. He was elected leader of the world's 1.2 billion Catholics. He's also the first Jesuit and the first to assume the name Francis. Pope Francis plans a visit with his predecessor, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, in the coming days, but that didn't happen today, nor will it happen tomorrow, according to Vatican officials. House Speaker John Boehner says he has too much to do in Washington to travel to Rome for the Pope's installation ceremony. The White House invited Boehner to be part of the U.S. delegation led by Vice President Joe Biden. He says he wishes Biden well on his journey and hopes he passes along prayers and warm regards to Pope Francis. Boehner is the highest-ranking Catholic in Congress. The Senate Judiciary Committee today approved legislation to reinstate a ban on military-style assault weapons. As part of a party-line vote, the 10 Democrats on the committee supported it, 8 Republicans opposed. It now goes to the full Senate, where analysts predict it has little chance of passing. The measure is part of a package of gun measures studied after the Connecticut school massacre back in December. 40 years ago today, now U.S. Senator John McCain was released from a POW camp in Vietnam, along with more than 100 other POWs. His colleague Mitch McConnell paid tribute to McCain's sacrifices for the country and paid tribute to McCain, the war hero, on the Senate floor this morning.
John McCain never lost hope, even when he was locked in solitary confinement, and even when he was tortured. His captors poorly cast his broken arms on purpose. They broke an arm again and hung the young captive by his lifeless limbs so they could torture him some more. Eventually, Vietnamese officials discovered he was the son of a high-ranking Navy officer and offered him an early release. He turned their offers down.
Now, McCain spent more than 5 years in captivity in Vietnam. He's one of only 2 Vietnam War POWs still in Congress. Meantime, the charm offensive continues for President Obama. It kicked into high gear earlier today as he made his way up to Capitol Hill to meet with Senate Democrats. But the trip down Pennsylvania Avenue has already hit a few speed bumps.
His coming here, I hope it does good, but it's certainly not going to do any harm. I think with my caucus, but you walk out anytime you have a meeting with the president, I come away with a couple of things. Number one, he's one of the nicest people that you've ever dealt with. I mean, he doesn't ever try to indicate to people how smart he is or that was a dumb question. He doesn't do that. And secondly, he impresses everybody with his knowledge of the issues. The dinner he had here a week ago with the Republican senators, there's not a single senator who they tried to jockey with him on very deep financial issues. He knew them all, was better than they were. So I admire him coming here. It's easy to come to my caucus and to go to the Democrats in the House. but it's harder for him to come to an unfriendly audience. And I would bet that the vast, vast majority of those people walking out of the meeting that he's having here and the one that I guess he's had in the House, they're going to say, you know, he's a very nice man and he's extremely smart.
Congressman Mike Rogers of Alabama is angry that the head of the Immigration Service in the U.S. released thousands of illegal immigrants, saying that it was due to sequestration cuts. Now, Congressman Rogers says the head of that agency needs to step down.
We recently learned that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, released thousands of illegal immigrants out of our detention facilities across the country in anticipation of the sequester cuts. Not after the sequester became law or the cuts became reality, in anticipation. This is the latest in a string of lapses in judgment by ICE Director John Morton. Because of his repeated questionable actions, I've called on Mr. Morton to resign. Rather than making common sense cuts like reducing administrative staffing, cutting overhead, or taking other action, ICE chose to release thousands of known criminals directly onto our streets and into our communities. ICE's justification for this plan is that those individuals will remain in a monitoring program while deportation proceedings are ongoing. Really? It baffles me that ICE officials continue to insist that someone who has already committed a crime by entering this country illegally would willingly participate in a monitored self-deportation program.
Now, Rogers is a senior member of the Homeland Security and Agriculture Committees, and he also serves as chairman of the Strategic Forces Subcommittee on the Armed Services Committee. Well, a bit of a surprise today for conservatives meeting at the annual Conservative Political Action Conference in National Harbor, Maryland. Jeb Bush was not one of the 23 names on the 2016 GOP presidential nomination straw poll. CPAC's poll is often considered a way to see where the conservative base stands on potential Republican nominees. The former two-term Florida governor requested that he not be included on the poll, according to an anonymous source. Bush has been speaking publicly about a possible run for president, but says he won't make a decision anytime soon. His father, George H.W. Bush, served one term in the White House. His brother, George W., served 2 terms. Now, Jeb Bush will address the conservative gathering on Friday. Several branches of the U.S. military are suspending tuition assistance programs due to sequestration budget cuts. It affects those serving in the Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps. The Navy has not yet made a decision to cut its programs. Now, the tuition assistance programs are popular with servicemen and women. In fiscal 2012, more than 200,000 soldiers took advantage of the Army's program. $373 million was used to help soldiers earn associate, bachelor, and graduate degrees. A new study says you should get your brain checked as often as you have a physical. British researchers at the University of Cambridge say you should treat your brain just like any other organ of your body, just like you work out to keep physically fit. It's also important to keep your brain fit. Common mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety are easily treated, especially if they're caught early.
If we catch it very, very early, it's much easier, much quicker, and people don't have to have the misery that they might have if things are caught later.
So I guess the idea is to use your brain. It's the only one you've got. And with that, WVTT Information Overload.